Hello and welcome to another episode of Pep Talks with Jeanne. I'm your host, Jeanne Pepper. I started doing Pep Talks as a way to inspire you to do intentional acts of kindness and to further the goals of #BlazeItForward. Over the past 6 years, Pep Talks has evolved, and now I use it for interviewing key people in our community who volunteer at the next level. Some start foundations to further their philanthropic goals. Some work at the most influential and needed nonprofits. Or they dedicate their lives to causes in their local or even global communities to make this world a better place. Today, I'm excited to have Erin Runnion of Joyful Child. She's with us to talk about her work there. Welcome to Pep Talks with Jeanne. So, Erin, tell us, what are you doing with Joyful Child?
Well, I am trying to empower our children to be brave and be safe as they try to navigate this crazy world of ours.
So I met Erin. Luckily, we have a mutual friend, and I recently got to know you because of that. And it's been it was such a gift meeting you. Unfortunately, we share similar traumas. We've lost children to terrible crimes, and we've had to learn how to be positive in a scary world.
Absolutely.
And how to make it a better world. We both have a passion for that, and so we immediately connected on that level, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you for having me on Pep Talks.
Oh, I'm thrilled, and I think that our viewers are going to and listeners will really learn a lot about what you've decided to do with this tragedy and how you've made it, something beautiful from her legacy. So tell us a lot about what happened and how this inspired you.
Yeah. Well, meeting you is an inspiration for me as well.
Thank
so I do appreciate the opportunity to share about the Joyful Child in memory of my daughter, Samantha Runion. And we started 21 years ago. Samantha was playing outside when a car pulled up and a man got out and asked her and her friend if they would help him find his lost puppy. And then he rushed at Samantha and grabbed her. Samantha had the presence of mind to yell to her best friend, Sarah, "Go tell my grandma." My husband and I were both at work. And he threw her in the car. And she was found the very next day, having been sexually assaulted and murdered. And it was 11 days before Samantha would have turned 6. And I had a trunk full of birthday presents, and I had a little girl who, in very many ways, when I've read descriptions of Blaze, that spirit of joy and thoughtfulness is what stood out about her. She had an energy about her that made people want to pay attention to what she was saying and what she was doing. And she was, she was a tiny little girl. And, we're only slightly biased when there are children. So, I think she was brilliant. And I felt like the world lost somebody who was going to make this world a better place. And so in the aftermath of what happened, I had to kind of figure out how to give it purpose because it was so senseless. And the more that I learned about crimes against children, the more determined I became to reach other caring parents like myself and give us realistic tools to better empower our children, but also to better protect them from predatory crime is where we started. And then it really branched out to all violent crime because children are the number one victims of all violent crime in this country. And they don't even know that. They aren't given any tools to recognize what they can realistically do to be safe. And that's where the Brave program came into being. And so I started just by empowering parents. I wanted every parent to know what I had learned. And I know you can relate to that.
Yes. Yeah. Let me stop you just for a second. I just wanted to tell you that I was very aware of this when it happened because my son Blaze was 5 and your daughter, or 4, and your daughter was 5 when this happened. So I was very aware of this. My whole family was. We watched and we were horrified and scared when it happened, and we really are. And even now, like when my mother found out that I had befriended you, she was thrilled, and she was also wanted you to know how she thinks that you are like the greatest people she knows. So, yeah.
It was so great to meet her, I have to say.
Yeah, well,
it's very special.
But it was senseless murder. The person that did it, I believe, was a recidivist. This was not the first time he had done something terrible. Right. And I learned at the Joyful Child benefit this year, when you spoke so eloquently and so heartfelt about the person that did this to her, and you explained that he came from a home where he was abused, and when he complained to law enforcement, he was ignored. And 30-something years later, he killed your daughter. So this is very purposeful, what you're doing. It's very meaningful. And it's very important that we all understand that our actions have consequences for the future. There are ripples that come from negativity, and there are ripples that go out into the universe that come from our positivity. And that's why it is so important that we vibrate at this higher frequency, that we stay positive, and that we put in motion the programming and the messaging that will create a more positive and more educated world, so that we can all take some comfort in knowing that we are doing the best that we can.
Absolutely.
And that's all that we can do at any given time. So now I want you to tell me, how did you begin Joyful Child? What were the beginnings of it? How did you do this?
Oh, well, it felt like the world stopped. For me, obviously, you know what that feels like.
Yes.
The ground is gone. And one of the sort of silver linings, if you will, around that experience was the community just rallying in support. Everybody around you wants to do what they can to help. And of course, they can't actually make you feel better.
Right.
But as soon as I said, we have to do something, we have to create something to honor Samantha, everybody was willing to help. So at the time, I actually worked for BP, and they connected me with a pro bono attorney who walked us through establishing the 501c3. Yes, he physically drove to Sacramento, walked the paperwork through. We were a 501c3 6 weeks after Samantha passed.
Wow.
Yes. And so, I was so incredibly lucky that Samantha's story was heard by so many, that so many people cared. And it really did give me an opportunity to have a voice. And that just fueled it even more, because I know that so many families don't. They are not given that opportunity. Samantha's body was found within 24 hours. Her murderer was caught and arrested a week later. We went to trial within 3 years, which, all of that is relatively very fast.
Yes.
And all of that made it so that my family wasn't questioning what was happening with the justice system. We weren't wondering where she was. We weren't stuck in that wondering, that ambiguity, which is the 24 hours before she was found was the longest 24 hours of my life. My point is just that we were able to really focus on what we were going to do to honor her. And, I didn't know it at the time, but that is a very powerful mechanism for healing and for transforming your grief into something positive.
Yes, I would agree with you on that. Did you know when you started the Joyful Child that you wanted to create the Brave program? How did that become a thing?
I did not. When I started, I did not want to scare children. That was actually foremost in my mind. Samantha had nightmares after she went through a stranger danger assembly, and I didn't know how to comfort her, and I was terrified to talk about abduction, right?
Right.
I didn't know what to say. And so our first program focused entirely on uniting adult communities around better protecting kids, making the adults in every community aware of what grooming looks like, understanding that what happened to my daughter is on the most extreme end of the spectrum of crimes against children.
Yeah.
It is very rarely, less than 1% of all child abductions are a complete stranger. It is mostly somebody the family knows and trusts.
Oh, that's scary.
It is. And that's why we don't want to talk about the reality of it, right? It's actually less scary to focus on the most extreme cases.
Right.
And that was my challenge with reaching adults, because we all want to believe that we're great judges of character. We're all doing everything we can to protect our kids. And so when someone like me points out that, it is the people that you leave your child alone with who are most likely to abuse them, that is a very painful, and just, it's inherently unsettling, right? Who do you trust? And the reality is, knowledge really is power in these circumstances. And the key is that it's not just about you. It's about talking with your child, paying attention to your child's responses to different people when they respond differently. But what I learned over time was that the only time a child is vulnerable to a predator is if they're alone.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So the only person in a position to stop that person from hurting them is that child. And that's where empowering them to use their voices, empowering them to know that it's okay to be rude when somebody is trying to hurt you or scaring you, that you can get away, you can yell, you can tell. All of that is, they need permission, right?
Yes. And, more than ever now, I mean, we're hearing about sex trafficking being an issue with children.
Yes.
Yeah. So these are things that parents need to be very aware of right now if you have young children.
Right. And to understand that it's all actually on the same spectrum. Predatory crime looks the same. It is the same grooming behaviors, whether it's a trafficking groomer or a child molester. It's all about making a child feel special, making them feel like they belong to this special group. And the older they get, right? Kids, we are their number one target until they're about 11 years old. Our opinion as parents matters most.
Right.
Around 11, that shifts dramatically.
Yeah.
And then it's really easy for predators to lure them. And that's why we really focus on our elementary age kids, because we want them to have those tools to recognize when they're being manipulated, when they're being isolated, before it happens.
So tell me about the curriculum that you've created for Brave.
So we have a 10-lesson curriculum that is available to schools, and it's lesson plans, the whole 9 yards, for teachers to incorporate safety empowerment education into their PE and health programs. And so it covers fundamentally that no one has the right to hurt them. It is never their fault if anyone ever has or if anyone ever tries. And there are some realistic things that they can do to keep themselves safe. And in that process, we talk about creating their own safety plans, recognizing that they're the only person who knows who makes them feel safe.
Right.
So talking with their parents about who are the 2 or 3 people that are allowed to pick them up from school. Who are
so
those
important.
folks? Yes.
I mean, I remember when my kids were young, we had a word, and like the adult had to know the word, or they were not allowed to go home with them.
Absolutely.
Unless it was a known person that that we trusted.
Yes.
Yeah.
A code word is very, very important.
Yes.
And see, and the thing is even in divorce situations, very often that known person may be abducting them.
That's right.
So the code word becomes even more important when there is familial strife and somebody trying to exert power over the other. Because those familial child abductions, you want to believe that those kids are in less danger, but even a parental abduction, it is very rarely the protective parent taking the child. It is most often a abusive parent who is taking the child to further harm the left behind parent.
That's heartbreaking.
So
yeah,
we need to give our kids some tools. That's the reality of it.
Absolutely.
And from there, we also teach them actual verbal and physical defense skills to give them the power to stun and run should anyone ever actually try to grab them.
Wow. That's really amazing. How long did it take to develop that curriculum?
Oh, well, the learning curve is steep.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
And it's been going for years.
Yeah.
So it started with, I would say, everything that I learned about predatory behavior kind of informed the development of Brave. But then I did a program called Rad Kids, and I did the Rad Women's program as well. And in that experience, what I learned was what was possible if we actually got to work with children day after day. In the case of Rad Kids, it's a 30-hour program. So you go,
Wow.
yeah, it's very powerful. And I'm like, that's a gold star, but I want every child to get this information. And so I had to distill it down to what can teachers realistically present in their classrooms.
Yeah.
And so I would say it took about 1.5 years of working on it. I had a school district actually contract with us to create it. And I worked hand in hand with a teacher because I didn't know what a lesson plan looked like.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So we collaborated to kind of, she was like, you tell me what you want the kids to learn and I'll tell you how to show a teacher how to do that.
Terrific.
Yeah. And that is how we developed Brave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now about 25,000 children have been through it in their elementary classrooms.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Now we're making it video based because it shouldn't depend on me personally going and training people.
Because you actually would go to the schools. Okay, so now
I would train the teachers directly.
Okay, which is wow. I mean, they got Erin Runnion live, and now they're going to be getting Erin Runnion on video.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Which is great because now you'll be able to reach so many more people and help so many more children.
Absolutely. And for a lot of us as parents and teachers, talking about this stuff is not easy, right? We know the dark side.
Absolutely.
And so for a lot of our educators, I found that they were scared to initiate those conversations. So the videos really kind of create the context for the conversation, and then they can facilitate the activities around the lessons without it being so scary.
Yeah, that's great. How many school districts are you working with right now?
Primarily Westminster School District.
Okay,
that has been our beta test the whole 10 years.
But you'd like to grow this and
Absolutely.
get it out there.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're doing a pilot with the Boys and Girls Club of Garden Grove.
Oh, wow.
And we maybe hope to expand that in this coming year as well.
Well, I hope that we can help you do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would love to see your program at every school in the United States. Because it's relevant. It's not just relevant for Westminster, and it's really a shame that we don't have it in more places.
Right.
I mean, at this point in time, it's hard to believe we don't have it.
I know. And children really need it. You know, when we look at the safe school surveys, children are afraid. As much as we may try to protect them, they have access to the internet. They have access to their friends.
Yes.
They hear about these school shootings. They hear about all of the strife in the world, and they are afraid. And giving them realistic tools so that they know what they could do to be safer, particularly in public places, I think is more important than ever before.
Yeah. So you went on after this happened. You got married. You raised a family, and those kids are probably off in college now and having great lives. And what did you learn from this whole experience? What's your takeaway?
Wow.
I know there's so many things, and I just really put you on the spot, but anything you can share, because I think people really want to know, you've had trauma, you managed to take it and turn it into something really beautiful and helpful for so many people. You've changed lives. Just your presence, I believe, in the public eye, and your positivity has changed the vibration of this world to more positivity. So, I mean, as the person that's experienced this and gone through such a hardship and recovered, and, you never fully recover. You never recover from losing a child. I'm going to put that out there. I don't think I'll ever get over it. I think about my son every day. But there's something, and you mentioned this at the beginning, that it's part of your healing process doing this. And I mean, how long did it take before you left BP? British Petroleum, for those that don't understand what that is. I mean, obviously, British Petroleum is not in the business of educating children. So
right. I was an accountant.
Okay, so you were working for them, and at some point you said, thank you very much, but I have this passion project that I have to devote my life to.
They were amazing. They gave me paid time leave off for 6 months. I went back, and it was close to 6 months. I went back after 6 months, and my default is pretty much a joyful person.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my first day walking into the office. Some poor person said good morning to me, and I said, don't ever say that again.
Oh, wow. And that was your first day back in the office?
Yes.
You know what?
It was a rough start.
Yeah, this is why when people go through hard times, you can't take it personally.
Right.
When they're having a bad day, because we have bad days. We have bad years.
Yes.
Let me
Yes.
tell you. So.
Yes. And nothing matters more.
Yep.
Nothing matters more than your children. And it is very hard to accept that the world keeps on going. And
Well said.
I think that what I learned
Yeah.
is that as long as we're here, it's our job to find our purpose. It's our job to make this world a better place. And it is something, that's what I love what you're doing. I think it is the most beautiful legacy for Blaze.
Thank you.
Because that ultimately, that's what it takes, right? It takes everybody being intentional.
Yes.
My mom used to have a practice with me. Before we went to bed at night, she'd ask me every night, what good did you do today? What do you feel good about?
Wow, that's
right?
really
What did
powerful.
you do today that makes you feel good about yourself?
Everybody should be saying that to their kids. I
Right.
know that that was something that my dad used to say. My dad was not the easiest person, but one thing that he did do was he'd say, he would do things like little things and say, you have to do a good deed every day. Like whether it was picking a piece of trash out of the street, and he'd purposely say that. He'd say, I'm doing my good deed for the day. So I kind of always had that in me
Right.
as a child, and now as an adult, that we just do good for the sake of it. There doesn't have to be a reason. You just do it. You do it every day, intentionally, do something good. Yeah.
And the reality of it, and there's science to back it up, is it actually benefits you to do so. It actually makes us happier people when we are generous to others, whether it's our time,
That's
talent,
right.
treasure.
That's right.
It's really about doing good.
Yes.
Makes us feel better about who we are.
This is true.
And our
This
stamp
is
in the
true.
world.
This is true. And this is why I question whether being altruistic really is altruistic, because we as givers get so much more back from giving. And I have found that
That's true.
I would rather give somebody else money to improve their life than go buy something, because I don't need more things, but I do need to see the human condition improve.
Right.
I need that. My soul needs that. I can't watch people suffer and not feel like I'm doing something to make it better. And I don't know how you feel about it, but especially working with children, and you see these overwhelming problems, and we know we can't fix it for everybody. We can't do enough. How do you deal with that feeling of just being overwhelmed?
Oh, the truth is I deal with it again and again.
Yeah.
And I really want to encourage people to understand that we have to keep growing. We have to keep searching for ways to take care of ourselves, because the world is hurting, and it's foolish to think that, you can just be okay and go on as a caring human being without being impacted by what's happening to others.
Yes.
And that being said, we all need our own toolkit of things practices, whether it's a gratitude practice, whether it's, I'm going to do one thing every day that makes me feel good about my contribution. All of those things, meditating, walking, get outside, get your vitamin D. Everybody really needs to take care of themselves right now. And I'm sometimes all we can do is stay in our own lane, right? Make sure our lane is clean.
Yeah.
And when you find yourself being randomly aggressive, take note of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Take a moment, because that means that you're also putting that energy out there, right? And we don't want to contribute to what's already negative in the world.
That is so true.
And making ourselves more aware of how we're feeling and how we're impacting others. Children learn by example. And that is such a key part of what I try to empower parents to understand. We're trying to get kids to talk about it when they're uncomfortable.
Yes.
To be brave
Mm-hmm.
and say something when they can't even articulate the why. But for some reason, going over there right now, or that person who I've always thought was fine, is making me feel weird.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
We have to talk about it. We don't talk about it. We have to talk about the uncomfortable, the scary, so that we can move beyond them. And that's why, I mean, Samantha literally wrote notes to her brother that say, be brave. And that's where that name came from, because it was her message. Yes.
Wow. That's like, I think about these things sometimes, like how, I mean, there's no way that you can ever feel okay about the deaths of our children, and especially because they were murdered in such horrible ways. And I think that there's no way that's good. We didn't get to say goodbye. They didn't have like an extended illness where we could prepare for it. It happened suddenly. It was grotesque. It was horrific. There was uncertainty. We didn't know if we'd ever find them again. And I mean, I know I'm bringing up all these really hard things, but I think that doing so will allow the public to understand like the extreme situation that we were both put into. And I have to take some solace in knowing that I had 19 years with my child, that I got 19 years. I got something. And Samantha's life was short, but she had a purpose in her life, and she fulfilled part of it, some Absolutely. Of it, all of it, who knows? Yep. I'm starting to believe that there are no coincidences in this world, That's right. that we find each other, think terrible things. I will never believe that terrible things happen for a reason. So, right. And anybody that ever says that to me will not be my friend anymore. Just unfollow me. Just change your mind right now or stop watching me. But no, I don't believe that. I don't think that these things happen for a reason, but I think that our children fulfilled a purpose, whatever it may be, in this reality, in this place where we are all stuck, because I can't get out of here and neither can you. So we're stuck here. And for whatever reason, I know that our children fulfilled a purpose, because whatever that purpose was, look at what has happened as a result of their lives. I'm not talking about their deaths. Their right. very lives have changed the world, because in their lifespan, they inspired us to do something good that would affect the whole world, that could repair the world. So, even though Blaze isn't here to do that, his death gave me a platform to do it. And maybe neither one of us would have ever had a platform to do the tremendous things that I have been able to do now. So I have to say that is as heartbreaking as this has been, and gosh, I would give anything to go back in time and to be able to change it. The grief is a gift. And I'm going to say that because, as awful as it sounds, the gift of grief is that you will never see love the same way again. Mm. And you will never see your purpose on this earth the same way again. You will find a way to continue to live, even in grief. You will find a way, a purpose. And in that purpose, you can change lives and make this place better. And you know that. And yep. and I think that it in a strange way, and I'm crying now for everybody to see, but I can't help it, because it's real. I know every time I'm with Erin, we cry. It's just, we're going to just have Kleenex on the table from now on. But I think I don't cry just because I'm sad, but I cry because it's an emotional thing. And that is the gift of grief, is that we feel we feel other people's pain, and we know how it feels. And that is created an empathy in me. The terrible things that are going on in the world right now, the children that have been harmed by war. And, this is going to be rebroadcast for years, I'm sure, and people will be able to learn from it. And I'm sure there'll be another war going on, 20 years from now when this is rebroadcast. Sadly, it's always relevant. So, but when we hear about, children being hurt, injured, abducted, sex trafficked, whatever it is, we feel that sorrow and pain of the families and their loss so acutely, because we have experienced it ourselves. So it's almost for me, it can become overwhelming, because I can't do anything to help all of these people that are struggling, and it's so hard. But I will say that, for all of these people that do struggle with these terrible traumas and losses, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Not that, it will ever be 100%. It will never be 100% the way it was, but it will transform you. This is a transformative moment in your life. And this is a time where you can take this opportunity and make this something meaningful. You don't have to throw your life away, and you don't have to just sit in bitterness and anger for the rest of your life, or revenge, or whatever it may be that can motivate people to do things.
No, the only way to get to the other side of grief is to go through it. And that's the hard part, right?
Yes.
We want a solution, We want to fix the pain. And it hurts
Yes.
physically, hurts so much when you're in grief.
Oh, yeah.
And I have a dear friend who recently lost her son to suicide. And what I said to her is that your heart actually gets bigger.
Yeah.
Your heart finds space for that sadness and that brokenness, but it expands to encompass more people. It expands to better understand the human condition, our human history, and the depth of suffering that we as a species have endured and survived and overcome and rebuilt and created beauty again and again. It's what we do. And I truly felt like I drew a lot of strength from that history of strength, that we will survive.
Yes. I mean, we are resilient. I think we are resilient people.
Yes.
I know that some people, maybe they are not as resilient. I don't know how other people handle these things. I've known of people that have lost children, and most of them continue on to have good, meaningful lives. Not all of them decide to, become public figures and try to change the world. Or maybe they do in their own way. But we have taken the platform that these horrible things have given us and used it. We haven't just said, I'm going to go hide now. I'm going to go be quiet and grieve alone. Something about grief that I've noticed is that you can't grieve when you want to. Grief tells you when it's time. So like in the beginning, it was like I couldn't even accept that it had happened. And I know for you, because your daughter lived with you and she was, a 5-year-old is a child that has to be monitored constantly, watched constantly, especially now that we know what can happen when we don't. Yeah. But, I had a 19-year-old who was in college, and it was easy for me to say, well, he's just off at school, but
The brain's amazingly tricky that way.
It's like, I just couldn't accept it. Like, I don't know how it is, if it's different for people that have younger children, but it was very difficult. And then, as the grief started to permeate and started to become real to me, I realized, this is going to happen when it wants to happen, and I just have to allow it. I can't stop it. I know some people, like my husband, who doesn't, he tells me, is this helping you in some way to like talk about it? And, because if it's not, let's not do it, because it's so upsetting. And so, we all grieve in our own way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we have to give space for that. And that's hard. It's very hard. And there's definitely a difference in the grief process when somebody who lives with you passes.
Yes.
Whether it's a child or a partner, because
the day-to-day is something that we
feel
notice
it so
right away. Yeah, that somebody's missing. Your responsibilities have changed. Yeah. I mean, this is that was a big
it's
immediate loss for you that you felt immediately.
But it's not less, it's not more.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter how you lose your child. Loss is loss.
Absolutely.
And I do feel like bringing Samantha into my everyday through the Joyful Child Foundation has made it so that I can grieve. Like, when I acknowledge the pain,
yes,
I can immediately recognize the good that has come from it.
That's so healthy.
And so, but you have to practice it. It's like a muscle.
You do. You absolutely do. And that's like for everything in our lives. Like you have to make a conscious decision that you are going to stay positive.
Right.
I mean, I get so overwhelmed watching news now and even before we were at war, I was affected by negativity, and there's so much of it out there, which is why I've decided to devote my life to creating positivity, creating positive social media content, creating a space for people that want to hear about good things, about the things that good people do.
Right.
Or, one thing I did want to ask you about, I think empathy is like is a big thing that we don't talk about a lot. Not everybody is capable of it. I've noticed in my own family, but but the people that are capable of it, sometimes you may not exercise it. I feel like this experience has shown me how empathetic I can be. In your case, like what are your feelings about the person that did this to your child? Like, I know he's been punished, and must be very, very hard for you. And me, I haven't had a trial yet. I haven't had a sentencing yet. I haven't had justice, in my opinion.
Right.
So how has that affected you? Like, do you feel, I mean, when you spoke at your benefit about the person that did this, I felt like you had some empathy for him. And
I did.
And I felt aligned with you. I really did. Because from the beginning, I have felt like the person that did this to my child, whoever it may be, this is something that a human being who could only be genetically predisposed to do it, just like a pit bull is predisposed to bite people and hurt them.
With training.
With training.
It takes training.
It probably does.
And that is, yes. So I think for me, I do. I think about the 5-year-old whose big brother ran to the police station to report that he was afraid his dad was going to beat his brothers to death. And that police report said that they had been badly beaten and there were other circumstances. But the long and the short of it is, in all the years that those kids were going to school, no one, not a single person, a teacher, neighbor, parents of a friend of theirs, nobody ever reported that they might be in danger of child abuse.
Unbelievable.
And it was continuous, their entire upbringing. And that does not excuse what he did by any stretch of the imagination.
No, you're not allowed to kill people.
No.
It doesn't matter what happened in your life.
No. But it creates an opening for understanding, right?
How it could happen.
Yeah. Because if we all ignore the suffering of children, of others, we cannot be surprised when they get mad about it, when they have no regard for your human dignity, when nobody has shown them any. And that is where the empathy comes from for me. It comes from the understanding that monsters don't appear out of nowhere.
Right. I think, like, for me, even from the beginning, there are a couple things. I mean, there are a lot of ways that you can handle this. You could just be hateful, vengeful, angry, miserable.
Right.
And
nobody would blame us if we never got out of bed.
Or even if we wished the most horrible death on the person that did this,
Sure.
Or that we'd be allowed to do it, or, as part of our justice system. But, that isn't part of it. But, I have felt like from the beginning that if I were to carry around that negativity within me, that the only person that would be harmed by it is me.
100%.
So I immediately, I don't know how, but my logical mind said, I will not allow that to happen. Never will I allow the person that did this to my son to have the benefit of making me, or of making my life any less than it already is. Nothing that this person did will ever affect me negatively again. I will take everything that has happened and turn it around. Where this person tried to create a world of hate, I will create a world of kindness and love and caring for each other. So,
bravo.
Yes, because and the same with you. You've turned this around. I mean, where the person who did this wanted to make this a world where we can hurt children, you've turned it around and said, "Hey, no. We're going to make this a world where we protect children and where we give them the tools to protect themselves." So, when things happen to us that are out of our control, and where they create, such psychic harm to us, it's really a choice. And this is for you listeners. It is always a choice. The only thing you have control over in your life is your attitude and your response to the things that happen. So there is no reason why you have to go through your life, being hateful or angry or vengeful or whatever it may be towards people that you believe have wronged you. you can turn that around and you can say, I'm just going to make this world better. I will not allow people that do things to hurt me and other people to create an environment where that can happen again.
Right.
So that is why I've made it my mission, and you have also, to create a world where we don't have so much hate. We don't have so much lack of understanding, acceptance, and inclusion of people that are different.
Right.
And I will continue to do that. That, you know, as our mutual friend Shelley Haas has made clear to me, I need to stay focused on just a few things, even though I would love to take on every problem this world offers me. You know, I have, you know, settled on just a couple of things that I can work on,
that are manageable,
and meaningful, and you know, and they can be like huge umbrellas, like, you know, because in my mind, I am very focused on hate speech,
right.
Eliminating it, dealing with it, regulating it, finding a way to make the internet safer,
right,
and then also protecting youth that are LGBTQ,
right,
and helping them get mental health care that they need, because they are the at most risk demographic across the spectrum. But as youth, they have the highest rate of teen suicide, and this is preventable. It is preventable, and I know, and I feel sad for people that are listening to this and have lost children to this
right.
horror. And I know you're experiencing the sadness of this right now because of your friend's loss. You know, we can't blame ourselves when these things happen. I mean, they do happen, and they, unfortunately, it's so sad. But we can make an environment where these kids can get help faster before something happens.
Yes, mental health is absolutely paramount right now for our young people.
Yes.
And everything we can do to let them know that we love them, that they are valued, that it will get better, that there are more things, that they have not tried every single thing that might make them feel better. There's always options. And I would give anything to just reach every young person and tell them to hang on, hold on.
Yes.
Help's coming. Be patient.
So, Joyful Child, let's get back to what you're doing. You have a brave race.
We do have
a brave race that's coming up. And this is you have a couple of benefits a year that I'm familiar with now. I know you have like your annual gala, which I attended this year. I thought it was delightful.
Thank you.
You had lovely people there. You had many high school students that I'm sure needed community service. And if anybody out there ever needs community service opportunities for their high school students, Joyful Child, if you are in the Orange County, even South Los Angeles area, this is a very worthwhile organization that can help your child get that community service. I often get asked if I know of things that high school students can do, because unfortunately, children are not often allowed to work in community service organizations for liability reasons. They cannot go into homeless shelters and work like adults can, and they, you know, it would be nice if they could, but this is something that your high school student can do, and they will learn a lot from the experience because they will get to hear Erin speak, and Erin is a speaker like no other. Oh. I will say, your speech had me crying. I was gushing tears. And
joyful tears,
but hearing you speak was one of those moments in life that I will never forget. So
thank you.
Truly, you're very articulate, and you really touched me very deeply.
Thank you. And I want to add to what you said about the youth volunteer opportunities, because our youth advisory board actually informs the content that we develop. So
how amazing is that?
Yes, high school students who want to learn about how they can better keep themselves safe, but also inform how we are empowering younger children to be safe, because they know what the trends are. And they know what kids are hearing and being exposed to much more so than I do. And so they really do inform and help keep our lessons relevant and current. And so we are always looking for good teen volunteers, both on our advisory board, but of course at the Brave Race, at our gala, and our workshops for kids.
Okay, so tell us, how can parents and high school students needing community service, how can they find out about that?
You can go to thejoyfulchild.org, and contact@thejoyfulchild.org is the email. So just contact us through our website, and we will let you know how the next opportunity to be engaged. That you can also participate in the Brave Race that way, our annual gala. And we do have public workshops very rarely. Usually in the summertime, we'll do a couple of public workshops that I often teach.
Well, this is a chance you could meet Erin. So, yeah, so you can also find that on www.joyfulchild.org. You can find out where Erin may be speaking next if you would like to meet this incredible woman, a hero in my mind.
Thank you.
Yes, you
Likewise.
are. And yes, and the curriculum that you're providing is helping children. There is no doubt in my mind that this is something that's needed, wanted, and we should all be thinking about, if we don't have access to it, what we can do to help our children. Are there resources out there for parents that do not have this in their schools? What can they do?
Absolutely. And so if you're a parent, go to thejoyfulchild.org and click on our programs for parents. And we have a PDF that actually guides you through conversations with your children with a little worksheet. It is free. You can just download it directly from the website. You can also, I have parent presentations online on YouTube. I have to cut those down. They're really long.
I'm sure whatever you're
but
offering
the content is
needed.
so important.
Yes,
right.
it is needed.
So, but yes, just reach out to us and we will happily give you what you need in terms of empowering your own children, because that's why I started creating video content, right? So that I can share lessons with parents across the country and even the world.
Yeah. Have you heard any stories from parents who have come back to you and said, if it wasn't for you, I may have lost my child, or you saved us, you helped us? Like, tell me about those experiences.
Yeah, we've, in the very first pilot for Brave, we had, and it was actually, we had teachers in Irvine, Tustin, San Juan Capistrano, Orange, and Westminster, and Garden Grove. We're all piloting the program in their classrooms. And within the first 2 weeks, we had 2 girls disclose that they were being sexually abused by somebody in the family. And we've had 2 children who were reported to have run the opposite direction from a car that was pursuing them and attempted abductions. And recently, actually, just before COVID, our last big gala, one of the servers came up to me and let me know that her daughter, years later, she had done Brave when she was in elementary, but years later, she was accosted and used her Brave skills to get away. And he was in trial.
Wow.
Right.
That is really something.
Yeah.
So there have been actual confirmed cases of people that have been helped by the Joyful Child Foundation's curriculum. That is really exciting to hear about that. You know, I bet that for everyone that you have heard from, there are probably hundreds that you haven't. So that's something. And so that just goes to show that, like, you are making a difference. There are ripples of consciousness that go out when you do this stuff.
Absolutely. And I truly believe that young people learning that it is not their fault.
Yes.
When somebody tries to hurt them, that they have the power to be brave just by being true to who they are.
Yeah.
That matters.
Yes.
That's what makes a difference, is their ability to shine for who they are. And collectively, I think it is teaching tolerance. It is teaching, and I actually don't like that word, acceptance, because
I don't like that word either.
I don't tolerate that people are
word,
different. I love that people are different.
It's like, let's talk about that, and then we're going to wrap it up. But yeah, the word tolerance means I don't like you, but I'm going to put up with you.
Correct.
Is that a nice word, people? Like, do we say I'm tolerant? I don't necessarily agree with your lifestyle, but I'm tolerant. You know what? That's not I accept you as you are.
Exactly.
So just remember that. That is not a nice word. And I actually learned that from someone in the LGBTQ community.
Good.
That is where I learned that from, because I mistakenly used that word because I thought that because there was a museum of tolerance, that made it a good word. But it's really not. It should be at the Museum of Acceptance.
Right.
I mean, they need to change that immediately. Okay, so we're kind of at the end right now, and I have enjoyed this so much. I've learned a lot from you, and I thought I knew a lot about you, but I've learned even more. Is there anything like that you don't feel that you got across that you'd like to share with the public that's going to be listening to this and hanging on to every word?
Well, I hope that folks blaze it forward.
Oh,
I really do.
Thank you.
If you were touched by listening to this podcast, take that positivity and that courage and blaze it forward for us, because it takes all of us to create a safer and saner world for our children.
It really does. And really, that's who it's for. We are not doing this just for ourselves. I mean, Erin is not going to be abducted. She does not need to learn how to not be abducted. But, we're doing this for the next generation. And even when I tell people, go do something kind, go do some community service, do something, because we need to create a better world for our children. This isn't for me. I'm not going to probably live long enough to see the benefits of all of the things that I've put out into the universe. And you may not either. But the point is that if we grow with the seeds, we have to plant the seeds now if we want to create a world that is a good world. And we are on the precipice of being a world that I don't want to live in. I mean, we have to do something. We have to. What choice do we have?
Our first tagline, just what you just said, the first brochure for the Joyful Child Foundation, which was not beautiful. But the tagline was, "From one seed, 1,000 more can grow." And it's because...
Oh, I just got chills.
Right? Samantha's favorite flower was the sunflower.
That's right.
And because they always turned to the light and they grew as big as she was.
It's a beautiful metaphor, really. I mean, it's about the life cycle. It's about growth. It's transformation. It's everything. And doing good in the world is transformative.
And our children...
They are the beneficiaries of this.
Yes, every seed we plant.
Absolutely.
Grow to be beautiful. So...
Beautiful. She was a beautiful girl, and you are a beautiful mom and human being. And thank you so much.
Thank you
for being with me today and for sharing your story and your love of humanity. It's a beautiful thing to see it. Well, that's been another episode of Pep Talks with Jeanne. And once again, I would like to thank our guest, Erin Runnion of the Joyful Child Foundation, www.joyfulchild.org, if you want to learn about community service opportunities for your children. And about the excellent curriculum that she has developed over the span of a 20-plus year career now in child safety. And I just thank you for being here and taking time out of your important work. But it's also important to inspire. So
this is important work,
This is important work, too.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me on. Pep Talks has been amazing. And I hope that your listeners grow and grow and grow. If you would like to learn more about the Joyful Child Foundation, please visit www.thejoyfulchild.org. And you can learn about the BRAVE programs, download your PDFs to have powerful conversations with your children about what they can realistically do to keep themselves safe. Be brave, be safe.
Blaze It Forward is a campaign my family started to prepare the world with kindness in honor of our son Blaze, who was murdered in 2018. You can learn more about Blaze and how you can make a difference on our website, www.blazebernstein.org, or on our Facebook group, #BlazeItForward. And a special thank yous to all the volunteers that have helped with my philanthropic endeavors. Today, that is a thank you to my camera operator, Keith Anthony, and audio technician, Eli Moskowitz, who will be also wearing many hats doing the post-production too. And thank you all again for joining me. I'm Jeanne Pepper, and this has been another edition of Pep Talks with Jeanne. Thank you.